Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Jeff Lizerbaum here, pre-sales architect from Managed Solution, and welcome once again, or for you newcomers, welcome to our episode 2 of our Copilot Fall 2025 season. And this is episode 2. We're going to be covering Copilot Scheduler and Researcher, really turning Copilot from your assistant to your strategist. Really cool stuff here. Without further ado, let's dig right into it here. Now, we have a professor here. His name is Professor Hazelnut. He is not only the chief operating officer, but he's the primary researcher in order how to make a better cup of coffee. Wouldn't everyone like that? But the thing is that he gets disorganized. I would say that he's kind of an absent-minded professor to a large degree. Does this ever happen to you, though? I was supposed to prepare for a meeting. It starts in 5 minutes. What am I supposed to be talking about? Or I need to complete my executive report, and I'm just worried that it's not going to be good enough to convince the CFO to provide further budget going forward. The other thing that might happen, and sometimes I've run into this for sure, is that, you know what, there was something I needed to do, but heck, I can't recall what it was or exactly what was involved. Probably wasn't that important. When in fact, we all know is that things slip through the cracks and they were important. Another situation that might come across is that, hey, you know what? I got to get my report out done as quickly as I can, so I'm going to use ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude. You know what? I don't care. I just need to get it done quickly. Well, the problem with that is that maybe there's some intellectual property that might be exposed to these learning models, and you just don't want that to happen. And so we're going to look at certain tools to help protect your organization's data, but at the same time, give you some really great reporting results. So that brings us to these two different tool sets. One is Copilot Scheduler. What is Copilot Scheduler? This is a tool set that you can use just with your normal prompting that you do within Copilot to be able to schedule them such that you can be always up to date on any kind of Outlook meetings, Teams chat, any kind of meeting areas. Maybe there's some events that are coming up that you need to prepare for. So the scheduler actually provides you more of an automated assistant that every day you can get up-to-date information so you're always prepared for your next meeting days. Researcher, it's a little bit different, but it's still within the tool set and it's still within the chat area of Copilot, where you can gather some really deep investigative insights to really put a solid report together that's based on true data. We're going to look at those examples. The nice thing about this is that there's always potential to connect it to other internal data sets such as Salesforce, Confluence, Tableau, things like that, really to get some organizational based context along with web context. Well, let's dive right into it. Let's look at an example of Copilot Scheduler in action, and let's see how Dr. Hazelnut might plan his day here. Now, from this standpoint, you simply go to the main page of Copilot, which is m365.cloud.microsoft. When you go to that URL and you're using the Copilot for Microsoft 365, toggle on the work button. This is where Scheduler is actually going to work best. Now, I already have an actual scheduled task that's showing up there with that green checkbox. But what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to create a new scheduled task and a scheduled chat. Now, I always save these in my Copilot notebooks, which we're going to dive into much more deeply in our next webinars. But the nice thing about the notebooks is that I can save the most effective, popular chats and prompts that I've created, and I'm actually going to utilize that, maybe make a few tweaks in it. But when we're creating a scheduled prompt, what we need to do is we actually need to issue the prompt first and let it run to make sure that the results are valid and the results are effective and what you want them to be. So from this perspective, we're going to look at some of those uh, responses and the output, and I can see, this is helpful already. I can see what's an event, what's a task, even what are some of those hot items with those little flames right next to there to show, hey, these are some priority things that maybe I should bump up into my task list to get done. So with that said, I kind of like that output. We're going to move on to this next step then, which is to actually schedule it. There's a little toolbar there at the bottom, and there is a choice when you open up those ellipses. You're going to see schedule this prompt. By doing so, we're going to see a summary of our prompt there. Now, right now, it is limited to being able to provide the output automatically in Copilot Chat, but soon it'll be available in Outlook and Teams. Now, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to schedule when the prompt is going to happen. I'm going to schedule it daily, but you know what? I don't need Friday or Saturday. I'm going to enjoy the weekend. Now, here is where it does get a little tricky. So the scheduler is limited to 15 times, so this prompt will be able to trigger 15 times, and that is the limit. There's a good reason for it for performance-based issues. If you instead want to move to more of a limitless scheduled prompt, where it's always going, we're going to talk about that much more deeply into further episodes using Power Automate and Copilot Studio. And, but in this case, we don't need to know any programming. We don't need to know any Power Automate or any of those advanced techniques. We can simply run the scheduled prompt from here. When it gets created, it goes into an active mode. It starts that initialization, and from there, we're going to kind of wait until it finishes its thing there. But it tells us right now that the next run, when that next run will be. I can run it now. I can turn it off. I can delete it. So let's see it in action when it is running. When we see it in action, you'll see that now this is a window that you can open up and see the spinning wheel and as it's running there. But essentially everything runs in the background. And at any given time, or really during the scheduled time, you're going to see that new prompt available. It usually has a green checkbox next to it when it runs on the scheduled time. What I did was I actually ran it on demand there, but it's going to give you the latest up-to-date information in your schedule. So it's a really nice way of staying up to date, being in the know, and to really prioritize your tasks and events. So how would you use Scheduler in your role? In HR, maybe there's some recurring compliance training sessions that you want to set up and send out calendar invites. Use those as reminders. Maybe in marketing, there's some automated follow-up for the creative teams to be able to work on certain tasks. In sales, maybe you only need to schedule the prompt to happen quarterly to remind you that, hey, for the next quarterly business review, we need to get that report going. In customer service, always some great ways to use it, one-on-one coaching, things like that to set up some reminders and tasks. Also in finance, it might not have to happen daily, but you might want to schedule something on a quarterly basis to make sure that the finance team is staying on time and on target for certain budgetary items. I always appreciate Scheduler as an IT pro because I want to be reminded of, when my next demo is, for example. When do I need to set up the environment, and maybe what do I need to set up in order to make it effective? So Copilot Scheduler, definitely some things to keep us in the know of our daily or quarterly or whatever that cadence might be. If you wanted to get some help in creating your own prompt for Copilot Scheduler, here's some ideas. And if you joined the webinar 2 weeks ago, we covered a lot of ways that we can do effective prompting, and these are the ingredients that we use in order to create the prompts. So use this in terms of creating a Copilot scheduler prompt to give you up-to-date information each day, maybe every week, just to keep you on your toes of what is happening in the next meeting and the tasking that you might need to do. Feel free to take a screenshot of that if you'd like. If not, there's going to be a recording of this available for all of you attendees. Now, switching gears here, Copilot Researcher is a very valuable tool that's all part of the Copilot for Microsoft 365 experience. Researcher is a little bit different, well, it's actually quite different than Copilot Chat, as well as other chat tools like GPT, Claude, Gemini, those areas. Researcher actually goes into much more depth. It is used for summarization. It's very citation heavy, so it's always going to look for the source of truth. Let's see how Dr. Hazelnut will perform his research on his coffee making skills here. So let's go into Researcher. It's right there under the agents portion of chat. And just like, a chat prompt is, you have some already pre-canned prompts you can do. I can actually see some history that I've done in Researcher in the past. But this time I'm going to add my own prompt. And again, I'm going to go back to my notebook where I already have a well-developed prompt that I spent some time on, I have to admit, but the time I spent on this is actually going to save a whole lot of time because it's going to give me a whole lot more output than ever before using Researcher. So what I did here was I summarized my prompt in a single paragraph. Copilot, it doesn't really care too much of the formatting as long as it's in one continuous paragraph. That's just fine. In fact, it just makes it easier to provide that into the prompt there. And hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's just run it. Now the difference here is that it's going to take its time, and I'll show you what I mean by that. It's going to say, you know what? There might be some other specific regions or markets you might want to consider. There might be some other sources or databases. So it's keeping me in check to make sure that I am prompting it and giving it the right information. But in this case, I like what I prompted. I'm pretty confident with it. So I'm going to tell Researcher to just say, go ahead, use your best judgment. So we're going to go ahead with the report, and let's see what it looks like from as it's doing its analysis here. So one thing that I'll be doing is I'm going to be speeding things up here. And the reason is because this will take, again, a long time for this to run. Now, when I say a long time, 5 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes, it really kind of depends on what you're gathering here. Now, it's going to go through beginning the research. It's going to give me some pretty key aspects and some topics that, it's doing throughout its process. So as we start speeding things up, we can actually go in and we can open up, this area a little bit further, which I'll do. And you can actually see the progress as it's going. Now, sometimes it is kind of like watching paint dry for many times, but you can see that the circle is spinning there. It's moving on to every step that it can think of in order to produce best output. As we speed things up, again, due to the nature of time, we're going to take a look at that clock in the lower right corner there, and we're going to see that, whoa, you know what? Hey, this is actually going through quite a few minutes. I think it started around 8:13 in the morning, 8:16 now, 8:17. So, it took probably a good five minutes or so in order to run through the entire report. But the output, right away, I can see that there is a very in-depth report, and it actually has some infometrics that are very useful to be able to display for executive level and other audience members who really kind of want to get a good grasp of what it takes to make the best coffee available and using the best filters and things like that. So what do we do with this content once it's been output in chat? Well, there's a few other things. We can follow up with some of the prompts that it suggests, or we can go ahead and we can save the content right away. And what I love about using this tool is that I can go ahead right into Copilot Pages, which is basically it's a platform where you can save the output and make some real-time edits as you need. And the nice thing also is that it saves the formatting just like it did as it developed the output. Now there's a few more actions in order to save it a little bit more effectively and long term. Notebooks are right there, so I'm going to go ahead and save that page to one of my existing notebooks so I can call it up for later and make further edits as needed. So the notebook is created and the page has been added there. The nice thing also is that there's a direct link to be able to open this in Word and be able to create the content in Word. Maybe that's a little bit more familiar for Dr. Hazelnut to be able to make some of those important edits and collaborate with his others to be able to make this report as best as possible. Now, just to review, just like I did with the scheduler, is that using those ingredients, goal, context, source, and expectations, use the same prompt techniques in order to create a good researcher output. And that is what makes Dr. Hazelnut very happy, that there's been really good research put into this. It saved a lot of time. It actually did a lot of investigation for him. Now, this is not to say that this is going to replace someone's position who does research. You still need to validate those sources. You still need to go in and validate a lot of the content in that report. There's no question about it. We need that human touch for sure. But it definitely helps speed things along in terms of getting better content faster and much more reliable for that matter. So very exciting stuff with Copilot Researcher. Definitely try using it and explore what you can in your role. And speaking of roles, again, we'll revisit what happens with someone in HR. You might want to use Researcher to analyze the labor market trends and benchmark compensation. Marketing, gather some data on the new digital marketing tools and platforms that might be out there. In sales, maybe there's some insights or buyer personas in decision-making trends. We see that a lot in retail. Retail always wants to make that experience very personalized for the shopper, and Researcher is a really good tool to be able to guide you through that. Customer service, hey, let's analyze some of the trends in customer support and maybe automation and AI. There's a rich set of information out there that Researcher can seek and get some output for. Finance, regulatory changes. Let's research that. Let's see how it's impacting some of our financial reporting. And again, from what I do and what I like is that maybe I want to learn much more about AI and machine learning applications as it applies to information technology. So several use cases here, no matter what the role is in your organization. Well, great. As we wrap things up, we're going to be having some further events. These are occurring every 2 weeks in our fall series of Copilot. And go ahead and that QR code is there for you to take a snapshot. It'll bring you to our events page here, or you can just go to managedsolution.com/events and look for some of the upcoming webinars and also some of the on-demand webinars. Well, at this point, I'm going to bring it back to Jeff, and we're going to take some of your questions. I appreciate your time.